Dios y mi hija me han perdonado.
God and my daughter have forgiven me.
You committed the ultimate act of betrayal, leaving your baby terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome death imaginable.
She was gone from 6'8" to 6'11".
When a baby is born, their entire life depends on their mother. She keeps them safe, happy, and well, alive. A mother's milk, hugs, and voice are crucial to a baby's healthy start in life, and yet, some mothers are not capable or willing to offer that. 32-year-old Kristel Candelario is one of the most shocking examples.
She is in Puerto Rico having a good time with friends, and that there is not a care in the world about the 16-month-old that was left alone in the pack-and-play.
Kristel was nothing short of evil. When authorities discovered her baby's lifeless body, she weighed less than 14 pounds. She had lost 7 pounds in the last 2 months. Her mother left her to wither away while she partied in Puerto Rico. She never asked anyone to babysit. Her shocking trial would reveal oodles of neglect, apathy, and mental health red flags that were ignored until it was too late.
You committed the ultimate act of betrayal, leaving your baby terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome death imaginable.
This is the tragic story of Kristel Candelario. It was a sunny day on June 16, 2023, when authorities arrived at this home in Cleveland, Ohio. They were called to the scene by a distraught mother. Kristel Candelario, 31 at the time, called 911 to report her 16-month-old daughter unresponsive. She just found her like that, she said. What she didn't tell the dispatcher, however, is that she'd left her baby daughter home alone for 10 days.
If in fact we would have gone to trial, the evidence was going to show that Kristel Candelario left the state of Ohio on 6/4/2023. She leaves because there is a receipt that's found in her car that she is in Taylor, Michigan.
The first responders at her home describe what they saw as the most haunting crime scene of their lives.
I was the lead detective investigator on this case, and I could honestly say, Your Honor, in my 17-year career as a Cleveland police officer, this by far is the most horrific case I've ever had to investigate. Now, I've been a detective for 10 years.
Little Kristel Candelario was lying in a dirty crib in an unimaginable state of neglect, in a room that looked more like a scene from a horror movie than a child's bedroom. There were no toys, no light, and no colors. Some of the most seasoned detectives saw this scene and started crying. Kristel had lost her life several days ago. Her body was so emaciated and dehydrated she hardly looked like a baby at this point. During an autopsy, Kristel would be weighed. She was below 14 pounds. The first responders had a simple question for Kristel's mom. What on earth happened? Kristel Candelario was born on September 11, 1991, and in 2023 she was a single mom or two. In 2016, she moved to the U.S. from Ecuador with her family, looking for a fresh start in life and more work opportunities. She found a 3-bedroom house in Cleveland to share with her parents, and when she had her 2 daughters, everyone was happy. They would have lots of space to grow up and Kristel's parents to help whenever she was at work. In December 2022, Kristel was working as a substitute teacher at the Citizens Leadership Academy Glenville campus. One might even say she was good around children. At this point, she was already a mother to little Kristel, who was born in early 2022. Her dad was a man from the Dominican Republic. Kristel had met him online, and the two began a long-distance relationship, with Kristel sometimes traveling to the Dominican Republic to be with him. When Kristel got pregnant, she told her boyfriend, but he became physically abusive toward her. That's right, while she was pregnant with his child. Kristel was right in cutting him out of her life. But once Kristel had her baby girl, many people around her noticed she wasn't exactly keen on being a mom. She was always asking her parents or friends to babysit while she was away for days on end. Once, she asked her neighbors to watch over Jaylyn for a few days while she went on a short holiday. She was actually away for weeks, and for a long time, the neighbors could not get in touch with her. Imagine the worry they felt, the neighbors said. I was the one calling her, saying, "Look, I don't have money to buy milk for your baby. What am I supposed to do?" Also, a baby needs her mother more than anything. It's impossible to imagine how alone and afraid Jaylyn felt as her primary caregivers kept shifting during the first months of her life.
Neighbors told me this is not the first time Candelario has left the baby home alone.
We keep telling her not to leave her by herself. Not only me, my friend across the street too. But she always be here by herself.
It wasn't really her mom that was taking care of her. It was her grandma that was mostly taking care of her. Her mom always wanted to go out and just left her with her grandma and all that.
But Kristel's parents were not always there to look over Jaylyn. Kristel had an older daughter from another relationship, and they were often busy picking her up from school or taking her to her usual activities. Nevertheless, Kristel would continue to go partying while her baby daughter was home alone, unable to fend for herself, and not understanding what was happening. And in June 2023, Kristel's parents were away with her older daughter, but Kristel wanted to go on vacation. Kristel scheduled a short trip to Puerto Rico with her boyfriend at the time. The plane tickets were June 8th to June 11th.
She was gone from 6/8 to 6/11.
But Kristel was gone for several days before that, too. Surveillance camera footage outside her neighbor's home showed her leaving a few days beforehand for a short stay in Detroit before heading to Puerto Rico. On June 9th, Kristel proudly posted herself on social media with the caption, "Time enjoyed is true, time lived." Meanwhile, her baby daughter was starving to death. On June 11th, Kristel arrived back in the U.S. but did not go straight home. Instead, she stayed in Detroit for 5 more days. That's right, 5 more days, and she had not notified anyone about Jaylyn's whereabouts. From the same surveillance camera, detectives could hear Jaylyn's terrified cries. That's how loud she cried, until she was too weak to cry anymore. And yet, when her mother found her unresponsive on June 16th, she went into a state of panic on her 911 call. How was she surprised by this? Detectives did not buy her cries. The next day, after calling 911, Kristel went back to Detroit to spend a few days with one of her boyfriends. And when the detectives arrested her for child neglect resulting in death, Kristel said she had been home the whole time. Only her daughter was not eating well. She was full of lies and conflicting stories. She did not even realize there were receipts and records of her travels. Several experts could hardly abstain from crying as they uncovered this tragic case. Jaylyn had starved to death in a state of absolute agony while her mom was out partying, and her mom wasn't even accepting responsibility for it. Kristel Candelario was arrested and charged with... At her sentencing, forensic pathologist Elizabeth Mooney gave a heartfelt discourse. First off, she revealed that children experience the most extreme separation anxiety between 9 and 18 months. Even being left alone for a few hours can cause severe distress. Elizabeth linked this to Jaylyn's excruciating final days. She could hardly hold down her tears as she said, "The pain and suffering she endured lasted not only hours, not days, but possibly even a week. This feeling of abandonment for days on end, coupled with the pain of starvation and extreme thirst, is a type of suffering I don't think any of us could ever fully fathom."
Unfortunately, this is one of the most tragic and unfortunate cases I've had in my career thus far.
Jaylyn died for a whole week. Her body ate itself as it struggled to stay alive. She lost 7 pounds, 1/3 of her whole weight, that week.
This tragedy should have never happened. I am Sergeant Gomez from the Homicide Unit. The entire Homicide Unit, Cleveland Homicide Initiative, and our partners from the FBI are here today in honor of baby Jaylyn Candelario. When we were first notified of this horrific case, we were all heartbroken.
That's right. Countless homicide detectives cried as they read Jaylyn's case or saw her body, but Kristel remained defiant. Her baby's death was not her fault.
This baby loved her mother, she needed her mother, and her mother betrayed her.
Kristel's attorney also had a chance to speak. He could not defend her actions or even justify them. He confirmed his client was a shocking narcissist.
These actions are narcissistic, selfish, abhorrent, absolutely worst parenting imaginable.
The only thing he could argue for was a lenient sentence. In a deal with the prosecution, Kristel pleaded guilty to aggravated murder. Kristel's attorney revealed that she had a history of severe mental health issues and tendencies to harm herself. After being diagnosed with a slew of affections, Kristel was prescribed a long list of medications. Mind-altering medications, that is. According to her attorney, Kristel's clear thinking was greatly affected by these medications, and it was even more affected when she stopped taking them abruptly.
Medications ran out. She wasn't feeling any better. They weren't working. She stopped. Not supposed to do that with these drugs, Your Honor.
It's true, abrupt interruptions can lead to even more severe symptoms than before taking meds. But as he said, nothing can excuse her actions. Like many of the detectives working this case, the judge also let Kristel know how he felt about her crime.
You committed the ultimate act of betrayal. Leaving your baby terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome death imaginable.
Before her sentencing, Kristel gave a sort of tearful apology, but by apologizing for taking her daughter's life, she in fact complained about her own suffering.
I'm not trying to justify my actions.
Pero nadie sabe cuánto yo estaba sufriendo.
But nobody knew how much I was suffering.
Really? Is this all still about you?
You decided you needed a vacation. And what followed was absolute depravity.
Kristel Candelario was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge told her it's simply a life-for-a-life scenario, except prison will feed Kristel and will keep her alive. And no amount of years behind bars will erase the horrors Kristel's baby girl went through for 11 long days. What do you think about this tragic case? Do you know similar stories? Let me know in the comment. And before you leave, make sure you like, subscribe, and check the next video.